Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sasha Star. It's a show Ukraine, Russia, China, and I would like to introduce my esteemed guest for today, Ben Banerjee from Swiss Impact. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you, Sasha, for your kind invitation.
hmm
Thank you.
So it's very uncertain time here that we lived through is not this horrible war, and as a continuation of Putin's policy is efforts to create some kind of um, uh, a new alliance between Russia, China, and Iran, with the possible implications of weaken the Western world, including, of course, in first of all, United States, try to denounce its currency as a leading currency of the world. And the danger is that, of course, all other well-known currencies would suffer just as well. And what do you think the West can really do about it, or maybe it's just ignore it simply if Russia cannot do anything with Ukraine, what they can possibly do with the United States and the rest of the world? What's your opinion?
I think there are two very old Chinese sayings which would be matter here. One is to cut the enemy. How do you say, to defeat the enemy with thousand cuts, and second is open too many fronts. And that is something I think President Biden has to think about very well before he takes the steps. About the thousand cuts, it's if you look at it, it's China and Russia are already working together. They have been not only deploying here in the working together, but they have been doing exercises together with them. The naval forces have been doing exercises together in the Sea of Japan. They have been also kind of penetrating the Japanese defense, Korean defense. The Russians are doing the same in Finland, in Sweden, in Denmark. So they are provocating and pushing to see how the West will react. So I think this, which you mentioned yourself, that the West should, in my opinion, should for the moment ignore it. Otherwise, it will fall into the same trap, and it will open too many fronts. And I think West is not strong enough, nor is it united enough to open even two fronts. It should stay at this moment focused on one and try to finish it as soon as possible, which of course it does not have the motivation, or I would say the leadership and the skill to be able to do that.
Ben, on the other hand, you see, we have talked a lot on our show about all this so-called Putin verstehen people,
Yeah.
primarily in Germany, of course, it's France, Italy, Hungary, some other countries. But what people don't talk about it, or maybe either they're not aware of it or they don't bring it up front, is the fact that US companies such as Lockheed Martin and several others, they are working three shifts, 24 hours a day. They're bringing incredible number of weapons, highly sophisticated, the first class, world class weapons to Ukraine, and they are keeping completely quiet about it. Like before, they're saying, oh, they brought four HIMARS, and people would talk about for a month about four HIMARS. Now they're sending already 20 HIMARS. They're sending much more powerful weapons, March 2, M277. They're sending a huge number of weapons. The next thing, what they were going to send is rockets, that can hit their targets about 150 kilometers away, and others. And they won't even announce about it. They'll just bring them over. So this way, people should understand that all this talks about, oh, let's not humiliate Putin. He already humiliated himself as much as it's ever possible. How else you can still humiliate him?
But, but I
So,
think but I think, Sasha, you and me know that, but not the whole world knows that. That's generally the problem we are facing now. I was just last week. I was in Holland, and extremely intelligent people. I was speaking to them, and they seriously believe that Ukraine attacked Russia first, and they think that Ukraine was bombing its eastern border, itself inside its own country, and US was supporting it and weaponizing it, and so Russia had no choice but to come in and protect its minority. So people are really believing this bullshit which is being sent. And the worst is, these same people do not trust the major media anymore. So the trust factor also has been severely weakened. So it seems that Putin and his group are severely weakening the West. The war is not being only fought on military. The war, in my opinion, is fought on four grounds. One, of course, is the military. Second is the finance. Third is food. And the last is energy. So, military, of course, what you mentioned is true. The West is supporting, is arming Ukraine. And in my opinion, it's still too slow, but they can do a better job. But anyway, that's my opinion. Secondly, in finance, West we put a lot of financial sanctions, taking their bank off the SWIFT, cutting them off from all kind of how do you call it, financial institutions, financial networks, blocking their money which is abroad. It impacted them, but not that much. And if you look at with the raising the oil prices, the financially Russia is not weakening at this moment. Then third comes the food. Russia by blocking Ukrainian ports and by bombing and destroying the Ukrainian ports like Mariupol and attacking Odessa, it has impacted severely the world food security. So in that phase also, Russia seems to be not weakening. It's the West which is weakening. And the last is energy. And you must be keeping up to date that Europe is now shivering already with fear what it is going to do in the approaching winter, because Russia can cut off and is cutting off the energy supply to Europe. So if you look at all the four grounds, maybe in the military we can support Ukraine to be strong enough to push back Russia. But on the other three fronts, West at this moment, I mean, I'm talking about at this moment, none of us knows how it is going to go forward. But at this moment, West is in a very, very vulnerable stage. And not to count about it, it's not unified, it's not united, which makes it even further weakened.
Um, okay, Ben, I will try to answer all your points. Actually, I will add a fifth point. Another one is the social media and public opinion war, which is very, very substantial. And in fact, your friends in Holland probably are victims of this
Exactly,
on
exactly.
this war. So let's see, we can come to the conclusions that Russia is doing formidable thing in this public affairs war. The public opinion, of course, is in many countries on their side. But people with a knowledge of history and who can analyze what's really happening, they should come to somewhat different conclusions. On obviously, with all these 5 points that we're discussing right now, the result will be obviously on the battlefield. Nothing else will change anything. Now, as we are coming to economic war, okay, I've read a very interesting publication by Business Insiders, where they're saying is that the impact on Russian economy is far, far greater than it's believed by most publications. And
Yeah.
they are quoting the one of the professors of the Yale University when they are analyzing all the data compiled by Russian agency and compare it to the same data from the last year and year before. So they're omitting most crucial information. They're just not publishing it anymore.
Yeah,
This is
exactly. I mentioned all these points in the last, remember in the last
absolutely,
program, I mentioned
absolutely.
all these points. Yeah.
And that's exactly the case. And now, if we're talking about grain bread, well, what can I say? Remember the French Maria Antoinette? She was asking
Yeah.
for bread, so let them eat cakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
and
shock. But I think the first ship actually left yesterday.
yeah,
Uh,
it's on
with
the
the
way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on the way to Ливан, right? Okay, and if that's the case, hmm,
And
then
I wanted to say something also about the, if you look at social media, so you have the social media, which everybody is aware of, we are all participants and members of, but it's not covering the whole world, and that's the worrying part. You also, for example, if you in Russia, you have Moscow and St. Petersburg. Of course, that's where the intellectuals are, where the economy is, the power centers are. But if you go a bit further ahead, say around few hours further than Moscow or something in towards the east, people are very much dependent on the TV or on
Yes.
their church as a source of information. And this is really, really worrying because the TV is non-stop showing huge numbers. 100 Ukrainian faces killed and 300 Nazis killed and this killed and all the Ukrainian Nazis and all the US HIMARS in Ukraine has been bombed out by the extremely perfect Russian missiles. In fact, they have destroyed more HIMARS in Ukraine than most probably there are existing HIMARS in the whole world, if you can
Yeah.
believe the Russian TV.
Yeah. Mhm.
And also they have destroyed all Ukrainian armory and everything. And when they hit supermarkets and buildings, they're always empty buildings, empty supermarkets full of Ukrainian Nazis. This is what the people are listening. And then another thing is happening is that they are the TV, and also they're starting now with theaters and street shows,
Yeah.
finding a parallel between Second World War and what is going on now. So now it has become, I mean, just turning up the people, the nationalism and everything, which and making them feel eternal victim, which Russians have been in the past also doing. It's the war against the Nazis, it's the war against the evil, and it's a war to protect the sacred motherland Russia.
From the evil West.
Evil West and from the Nazis. And this, because there is no independent media anymore, people are fed 24 hours this. And the worst of all is that the priests are saying the same. The priests in the villages. Like I was reading the soldiers, when the soldiers' funeral service takes place or something, they say it is for our blessed country, its rulers, and its army. So so these are the same people who do not have a normal heating system at home, who do not have, who are still using wood, who do not have often electricity, and most, most of, or many of them do not even have water in their tap. They
Yeah.
live on drawing water from the well. But these are the people who are being fed with this nonsense 24/7. So we should not underestimate the power of this media.
Okay, so I wanted to address, I think was the last point, what you discussed was the energy. Okay, so the Europe is, especially Germany, is struggling because of the lack of enough supply of gas. Let me ask you, Ben, how much Russian gas Germany had in about 1939, 40, 41, and so forth? How much gas they had? Probably not much, maybe none. And
Yeah.
yet they survived and they could fight the Second World War. Now, so maybe that's the case. What has to happen now? Maybe they have to go to the forests and get and chop some wood and had their heat by traditional way. If that's the case, because if you believe that there is a real war that Putin started in Europe, and that war, if he will be successful, God forbid, in Ukraine, you don't know how far that war could go. It could reach actually Germany as well.
Yeah.
So if it's a war situation, they will not have Russian gas 100%. So
Yeah.
they have to now learn how to live without Russian gas. Period. Your geography, unfortunately, created you without gas. So you have to use other means. Try maybe the nuclear power stations. Try something else. You have to find out how to create your energy. Forget about Russian gas. Imagine that Russia run out of gas. There is no more gas in Russia, period. The end of story.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to live and function without Russian gas. That's there is nothing else to say.
Exactly. But the gas problem, there are two things. One is that I don't know, Sasha, if you heard the new logo, or not the logo, the motto of the Russian army is that Russia has no borders.
Mm.
So So now regarding the gas is not a huge issue. So if you, I think I had mentioned it also earlier, if you look at it in the whole picture of the European picture, if Russia tomorrow switches off all its gas, as per all the economist report, there will be a maximum hurt of 1 or 1.5%. Issue is we do not have solidarity, we do not have unity. So, for example, EU Commission tried to come forward with that voluntary 15% cut of energy usage from now onwards, and we wouldn't have an issue. But guess what? Most of the country, Germany wants it because Germany, as you mentioned, is the one of the worst hit. Italy wants it, but Poland, who has its gas reserve completely full, or Letland, or there was one more country who are like Netherlands, who are completely well prepared. They don't want to cut down 15%. On other hand, you have Hungary, who is increasing or who is trying to increase its gas purchase from Russia. So the problem is the lack of unity. If there would be unity, Putin would have no chance. But this is the lack of unity where he is playing at, and at this moment he seems to be winning.
Well, Hungary actually one case where I would seriously consider sanctions against Hungary and just cut it from all the financial system of the European Union, and they will be smart enough very quickly. Now, about the gas issue, I've learned in the last couple of days that U.S. is becoming the biggest supplier of liquefied gas in the world, and especially supplying European Union countries. So, and this is not something that you can prepare very quickly in a matter of day or two. It's something there's a very high-end technology and technology and capacity that has to be prepared. And Germany only recently started to prepare its the liquefied gas terminals. They didn't believe that they would ever need it.
Yeah.
Why would they need this liquefied gas from the United States when we have a nice supply from
Pipeline.
Russia?
Yeah,
No
exactly.
no more supply from Russia. Okay?
Yeah, but the
This
issue
part
is
of life.
exactly. But the issue is that most of the gas is supplied in the gas form, and
Yes.
to bring it, and for that you have the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. But Nord Stream 2, which did not go through. But the issue is to transport gas to different countries. You need to liquefy it, and you have to send it by ship. And that is
Yes.
something, is a massive infrastructural issue, which at this moment we don't have, which can be built up very fast. And if, of course, if we go on a war footing, imagine that, like normally, like you mentioned, that it's a war situation, which the German elites or the European elites or especially the industries don't want to still believe in, that if we go on a war footing, then of course we can build it up. We can build it up with European technology and with our capacity. We can build it up very fast. But we are still hoping that we will get something from the pipeline.
Yeah, you see, there are a lot of also selfish actions from certain politicians. For example, Angela Merkel, she knew or she ought to know who is Mr. Putin. And
Yeah.
yet she preferred to think that, okay, while I'm at the power for next 10, 15 years, whatever it might be, we are okay with Russian gas, we are doing well. And after that, let's future leaders to worry about how to deal with this gas issue and Putin and whatever else. That's no longer my business, right? So she
Yeah.
did well while she was in power, so she had the Russian gas and so on. But right now, Germany, see, they're very practical people, and they think, okay, if Russians will win very quickly in Ukraine, we will get Russian gas. If there will be some kind of a peace, even not a complete peace, but partial peace or whatever, we will also get the Russian gas. So if this, and there is only one scenario when Russia will lose and we will not get the Russian gas, or maybe we will get some of it. So,
Yeah.
it is impractical to spend billions of dollars on infrastructure for liquefied gas if getting Russian gas is still a viable option, which
Yeah.
may, in some scenarios, materialize. So we are not going to spend money on the liquefied gas. So instead, we are going to cry, "Oh, let's not humiliate Mr. Putin. Let's be nice to him," and so on. But
Yeah.
you see, it's very, very selfish approach, and it's not going to work because
And it has backfired. Yeah. But
Ukraine
this is
will
not,
beat the hell out of Russia in Ukraine, and there will be further humiliation of Putin until some of his people will believe that he is no longer capable to
yeah.
represent Russia on a world stage.
But
Let's yeah.
I don't know when this will happen because, on the other hand, if you look at the economical damage to Ukraine, I mean, the damage is extremely significant. I mean, currency
Enormous.
devaluation, massive unemployment, collapse of production, complete destruction of their supply line.
Absolutely.
It's beyond measurement. It's not only a damage of now, but it's also the damage of coming 10, 20, 30 years. And all this is going to be on whose pockets? It will all end up at the end on the pockets of the Western taxpayers. And that is why I think the governments and the elites are actively prolonging the war, which completely breaks every logical sense I can imagine, because they, from the day one, they should not have prolonged. They should have given Ukraine enough weapon to finish the war, push the Russians out, and it was over. But since now the war has prolonged so much, the damage is piling up, and who is going to pocket the bills? And that's the question.
I think United States and generally the West came to conclusion that to prolong war is no longer in cards. It has to be finished really as quickly as possible, and therefore the avalanche of heavy weapons coming from the United States, it's becoming. Mm, it's becoming very similar to what's happened in the Second World War when the war was won basically on economic front even more so than on the battlefield, because if Russia and United States and UK, if they could supply they could make 20,000 artillery systems a month, and Germany could make only five. So you can figure out with each coming month what a huge advantage in weaponry from allies would cause Germany to lose the war sooner or later. It was inevitable. So now it's the same thing is happening, that the Russia is trying to get some drones from Iran. And Ukraine is getting all the latest weapon systems from US. Well, here we go.
But there's one very big difference between the Second World War and now is the third factor, the China. In Second World War, US had its own military production, Germany had its own, every country had its own military production. In today's world, the production is in China. So US cannot produce anything without, for example, the chips coming from China. I mean, look at the car industry. At this moment, the car productions have gone down everywhere because of the supply chain disruption of the chips. There's, I'm very, I have a big question mark about how much missiles and HIMARS and everything US defense can produce without getting the components from China. That's one factor. On other angle of this story is that China is fully supplying Russia. So all these Russian hyper, how do you call these,
Missiles.
this hyper missiles, hyper fast missiles, and all this, they all need chips. They all need electronics, and then
Absolutely.
all need technology which Russia does not have. They are getting it at full capacity from the Chinese. This is a factor we did not have in the Second World War, and this is a factor we have now.
Yes, I agree, Ben. This is definitely makes a difference. However, I'm surprised that China is so openly supporting Russia, because for them, West and primarily US is far the biggest trading partners, and it's a huge market for their goods. And I'm really, the Chinese are very practical people, and I'm surprised how they weight the significance of West and US markets versus no market in Russia, except for this electronic chips.
I think Z made a gamble, and this gamble sort of backfired, and he's stuck with it. He can't get out of it that easily.
Hmm.
So, because I thought he will take Russia will take Ukraine in a couple of days. Story over. China can see how the Western resolve is, the Western unity is, what can West do, and China can play the same game. It has already played. I mean, China is not first. It has already played the game in Tibet. It can play the game again against Taiwan and see how the West will react.
So interestingly, with this visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, how significant is this for diplomacy between U.S. and China, and what is the Ukrainian factor in this affair?
I think at this moment, the Ukraine has made China in one way insecure because it knows it is on the edge of losing all its goodwill it has built upon in the last couple of decades with the West. On other hand, Taiwan is a nationalistic factor, and nationalism is like a Pandora's box. Once you open it, it's very difficult to put it back in the box. And
Yep,
Z's survival depends on that. So he is going to play a big, high and mighty, and blow around it. This the story of the pigs, the fox who comes and blows at the house of the pigs. So he will do, but if I were President Biden, I would send or I would permit Nancy Pelosi to go to Taiwan because at the end of the day, one thing that the Ukrainian war has taught us is that the West has to stand up for its values. As long as the West goes only for profit and money and no values, West has no future. It is dooming its own future, its future of its children and grandchildren. They have no future left anymore. So if the West has to preserve its future, preserve its way of life, and make something of the democracy, it has to stand up for its values. And that would mean Nancy Pelosi should go to Taiwan.
absolutely. And don't forget that old saying that no resources, no money should be spared to make your army as strong as possible.
Yeah,
Because if you cannot feed your own army, you will feed your enemy's army.
exactly. The defense. And I think combined defense of the NATO is still, we are the number one. We
Mhm.
can take, NATO is strong enough even to fight two battles, two front, with Russia and with China simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Problem is it has to look at the economical value and the motivation of the politicians, and of course the politicians are run by the elites. It has to run with the motivation of elites. But Sasha, from history, elites often have chosen the wrong decisions, have made the wrong things, and they have been the creator of so many wars and disasters all around
Absolutely.
because they somehow lack the capacity of thinking all long term in some ways. If you see the film of Winston Churchill, I forgot the name of the film. It's something called The Darkest Hour or something,
Yeah,
where,
I think so.
where they have the decisions of the elites, where elites, I mean the politicians and everything, and he goes down into metro, into the train, to ask people what do they think, what is their opinion. And guess what? Historically, we know that it was the decision of those people in the metro which was right.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Ben. We are living in a very interesting time, and a lot of things happen. And I really hope that August will be very, very good for Ukraine and its army, heroic army. And of course, as we usually end our show, is Slava Ukraini. Thank you very
Slava.
much, Ben. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. And we'll see you next week again. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.